Have you ever had one of those days where you just say, you know what would help? A $50 bottle of room temperature fermented grapes paired with some breast milk from a goat. That's really what we're talking about this week in our Stoic lesson from our 52 weeks of lessons from a handbook for new Stoics. Hi, I'm Amy Yakowski, and I'm joined here with Sierra Ram-Cantrell and Rob Hunter, and we are Painted Porch Strategies. We're a training and advisory company who is dedicated to help you and your companies be the best they can through strong and resilient people, effective communication, and collaborative teams. In our lesson this week, week 44, they ask us to decompose desired externals, and they literally mean decompose. Essentially, way back, probably weeks 2 or 3, we were introduced the idea of indifferent externals. And basically what that means is, from the Stoic perspective, anything that is outside of your personal control is considered an indifferent or an external. And when it comes to our cravings or our desires or our passions, as they call them, so often we can succumb to them and not necessarily be mindful of what it is we're consuming or why. And what they talk about here is that while we were introduced to starting to spot when we have those various passions or desires, this one is really taking it a step further and saying, breaking it down into its absolute purest form to basically take some of the passion or desire out of it. It's not saying don't have it, don't eat it, or don't consume it, or don't do it. It's just merely saying don't let that passion or that hunger or that twitch be what's driving you towards that behavior. Questions or thoughts on that so far?
It's really the power of language when you think about it.
Oh yeah, it really is. So ultimately,
it ties into what I do here at Painted Porch Strategies. I'm the MC, the master of communication, because as Amy pointed out, it's a $50 bottle of room temperature fermented grapes, also known as wine. Mm-hmm. So really, that's what it is. It's a room temperature glass of fermented grapes, but we like to call it wine. And we like to think it sounds fancy when we drink it. And I like wine. Yeah. Amy likes wine. We have wine evenings.
But sometimes we crave wine, yes, or we need wine because of some other external influence.
And that's kind of where I think this goes, is just that, is trying to figure out the root cause of the why. Why do you want this wine? Why do you want this bottle of fermented grapes? So again, it just reminded me of the power of language.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of the power of your mind, the power of your mindfulness. So you can either take it like, the glass of wine being something sexy, or like think of the joie de vivre of a glass of wine relaxing on the patio, or you can think of it and really break it down as the fermented grape juice, to kind of just bring your mind into focus. And what they want us to do here is subdue desires for external things. So it's kind of like that, check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not that they even specifically point out here, because they have a quote from our boy Marcus Aurelius, and he goes through the same exercise. But it's not to say, as they even note here, it's not to say, as many people think, that the Stoics are no fun and they kill the joy out of everything. It's more the fact that they have to recognize that they can't fall prey to these over-indulgences. It's things that I love. It's things that I savor and I enjoy. And it's saying, yes, love them, savor them, enjoy them, but don't overindulge in them. And so in order to check yourself from those moments of weakness, if you will, really break it down to its purest form. In fact, even in the quote, I love this, he breaks down various things. He calls, fish or meats or fish, the carcass of a fish or a pig. He talks about his beautiful clothes, his purple robes, and how it's basically just sheared sheep's wool dyed with the juice of a shellfish. And then he talks about copulation as a functional discharge What a great turn of phrase there. But they specifically say, it doesn't
Don't
say
say that. Don't say that on a date. Don't use that terminology.
Hey girl, how about you and me go back to my place and have some functional discharge? Yeah. Woo, swoon. But they say that specifically, it wasn't that Marcus was like flagrating himself and saying bad, sex is bad, food is bad. It's really because he recognized that he could get in the trap of gorging on it or overindulging. So this is his way to check himself. It's really just stripping the romantic idea or the emotional feeling that you may attach to some of these passions that you have in your life.
Plus, it adds an element of levity, so a little bit of humor to it. If you think of wine as fermented grapes, you might chuckle to yourself and go, I'm getting really excited about this crushed up grapes that at some point in time someone stomped on with their feet before they put it in a bottle, in a barrel. Yeah.
You want some foot drink? Yes,
Yeah.
I would love some foot drink.
But it just makes you laugh, right? Because you just realize how sometimes human beings, we can be a little bit ridiculous with our with our notions. And if you take a 30,000 foot above another Stoic practice, you go, look, it's just the act that we get to do it is what the Stoics want to get us to. The fact that we get to be alive as humans in this moment in time should be reward enough. And that's kind of the goal. If you can think about that, the externals don't matter as much because you enjoy the moment, the living, which is something that Sierra touches on quite a bit, living in the now, focusing on the present.
Yeah. I also near the end of the chapter, they talk about, to borrow an example from Epictetus, money isn't going to whisper into your ear that it's valuable. It's your own judgment that tells you the value, right? So things in the same way that money is a piece of paper that is symbolic of a value, things really only have the value that you assign to them or the power that you assign to them. And this is where I love that they're having us check the objects of desires.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes me think a lot, Sierra. You talk about this frequently. You know, one of the, and you even mentioned it in your radical mindfulness program about the 4 cardinal virtues of Stoicism. And one of them is temperance or moderation. And that's ultimately here what they're trying to have us do. They even say, it's not that you shouldn't pursue it. It's don't be a killjoy. You know, it's not like, oh, I can never have that because I have to think about it this way. It's more just keeping it within check, having a limit, just being mindful, to your exact point, of what it is you're consuming so that it doesn't become something that you're obsessed about or you crave. And then it's pulling you away from doing the good, the virtuous activities.
But if you look at the language too, I'll use your wine example. Oftentimes we say, it's been a hard day. It's been a long day. I deserve a glass of wine. That's what they want you to focus on is those buildups that it's been a long day. I deserve this. Really focus on that and say, if you want the wine, have the wine, but have the wine for having the wine's sake, not because your body's craving it or because your mind is telling you you deserve it. Have it because you enjoy it. And realize that in that moment, that's the enjoyment, but don't try to pay attention. I guess I'll call them excuses, but whatever your mind body is telling you, like, ooh, your reason for doing it.
It's just bringing awareness to it ultimately.
I'm not sure who said it. I think it's from a hip hop song, but don't get it twisted.
Don't get it twisted.
Good one. See, on the porch, we talk about Stoicism.
And there's 2 rap references. Check yourself before you wreck yourself, and don't get it twisted.
Yes. Ooh, we're gonna have to come up with a third.
I'm feeling it. Well, you get that when you work with Rob because you get in that zone. That's his love is hip hop. Okay, so let's talk about what they had us do this week. This was kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. So they wanted us to either strip the description of the value judgment or, the fermented grape juice, or you can break down the desired objects into less desirable parts. So like with the coat, like it's made out of sheared wool that's been woven together and dyed by blah, blah, blah. Or if you're getting obsessed over like trying to get a new phone, like I'm obsessing over a piece of equipment that is made from metal and silicone and, and glass.
Exactly. Yeah. So I love this exercise. One of the first things they wanted us to do was identify what are some of those triggers, those signs, those words that you utter, or those feelings that you experience when you find yourself saying, I need a glass of wine, or I crave blah, blah, blah. I crave candy, right? Whatever it might be. So for Rob, what were a couple of your telltale signs or triggers that was like you're dipping into indulgence a little bit?
So I use TV shows as one example, and I reasoned that all it is a slew of people reading prepared lines, getting filmed on a camera that is transmitted through a box filled with all kinds of mechanics that I get to observe it on. So when you think about it that way, it's just like, oh, okay. It's very interesting.
How about you, Sierra? What were all of your signs, and then what were the turn of phrase that you identified?
Okay, so the one that I worked on this week, and this is one that I've been working on for a long time, and I'm sure I'll continue to work on, is I tend to be a people pleaser, and I want people to like me. So when I broke it down, I was like, okay, I'm assigning a lot of power to people that I may not even know, don't even care about. And also, like, does it even really matter?
Yeah, that's good. That's a different way to approach it. Because again, we're talking a lot about food, but it's not just food. It's anything that you consume, right? Or anything that can ultimately, as they say here, get in the way of your practice of virtue. Things that are a distraction and indulgence, because you can indulge in certain types of thinking as well. You can indulge in negative thinking. You can indulge in over obsessing and anxiety, all of those things as well. That's a great point. So for me, I noted, I stuck with food and drink for mine, but you're exactly right. There's other opportunities. I said, when I'm tired or worn out, like I mentioned at the top of the call, or when I feel stressed or anxious. And two of the things that I identified were potato chips, which I said, this is a starch grown in the dirt, then sliced and dipped in greasy oil, and minerals swum in by fish and trash, because it's sea salt, right? So then it has salt.
Ew. Ooh.
Ooh.
Not ever want to eat potato chips ever again.
I know,
so it might have the reverse effect.
It kind of bums me out, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to eat them. But I'm going to remind myself that it's dirt, vegetables, and fish juice.
No,
and then the other
thing that from you for a marketing campaign for potato chips, that's for sure.
Please let me be your new marketing gal. Hey guys, I have a whole new approach to this. The Stoic approach to potato chips. They'll be like, yeah, we're good. And then the other one I said was candy, and I just wrote, who the hell knows? Because I don't even know what's in candy.
Nobody knows. Yellow number 5, yellow number 8, whatever that is.
Who the hell knows what I'm eating? And so for me, it was, kind of what are some of those implementation intentions, those triggers, or the action that I take that's my reminder that I'm indulging. And I said, when I grab to pour that glass of wine, when I open the fridge looking for a snack, or when I desire that new outfit, that new piece of clothing as well. Those are 3 that were my triggers. How about you?
Oh.
Anything else you want to add? Any other discoveries that you had throughout the week?
There's a lot of them.
I saw you wrote down a couple.
Yeah,
things
snacks
there.
at night.
I'm just looking right at it.
Drinks after a long day. Instagram, which is just a button on my phone, which you described so aptly, Sierra. It's metal, glass, and some rare earth materials stuffed inside of a box that somehow entertains me for 3 hours a day.
Yep.
I also put for mine extra opinions, right? Like that's another vice of mine, is like just extra opinions. And I literally said, okay, this is just extra words, and speak when necessary. Extra words that just can be off to the side.
That's also odd, because there's so much pressure to have an opinion about every single thing ever in this current world we live in for some reason. So, sometimes I interact with people at work, and I'm in the opinion business, and I'm just like, I don't have an opinion on that. I don't really, okay, it doesn't really impact me. So whatever.
Yeah.
And people look at me like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah,
Like,
sometimes Rob would be like, did you hear about so-and-so? Did you do this? I'm like, I honestly don't think about that. Like, honestly, it's not even in my realm of things that I worry about or think about.
But it's also because we've been doing our 43 prior weeks, this week 44 of our Stoic lessons, that I've been able to be okay with that and saying, I don't have to have an opinion on everything. It's okay. Because opinions ultimately are just opinions. Unless I'm in a position to do something about it, it's just kind of words, like you said, Sierra. Some of them relevant, sometimes not, sometimes just rabble rousing.
Well, and then my vice with extra words also tied back to my other vice of wanting to either please people or, worry about their opinion of me. Whereas a lot of times, sometimes you think you need to have an opinion or know about it, because you should know about that, right? Is that it's okay to be like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Don't care.
Yeah, I don't want to know. I'm good.
But you know what, to that point, and this is actually part of the lesson here, even tying back to that money example that you gave earlier with Epictetus, there is a certain perception of needing to know, whether it's for status, for belonging. Maybe it's because of, I wrote here for things like marketing, like, if you don't chew Big Red, then F you, you know what I mean? Like from Talladega Nights. So it's like, oh, I got to chew the Big Red, or I have to indulge in this type of wine, or I have to share my opinions or get people to like me, because if I don't, what will happen? And it's all of those things, those perceptions and those value judgments that we assign to these externals, these indifferents, if you will, that can corrupt how we behave or our virtue and what we're doing day over day. And that's really ultimately what this lesson is trying to teach us, is
but
to
not about making you perfect. Again,
No.
it kind of seems like we're trying to be above everything human. That's not the case at all.
Just see it for what it is. That's ultimately it. See it for what it is, nothing more, nothing less.
But again, that language can kind of fool us in a way to thinking something's fancier than it really is ultimately what Marcus Aurelius is saying. It's like, oh, I have this fancy cut of fancy cow, dead cow.
Yeah.
It comes from a rare region of the world where they only eat rare grass.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, it's still a cow that we eat because our body needs nourishment at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
We've just added fancy language to that in emotional meaning, whether it's tied to the planet or whether it's tied to better for your body, all of those things.
Mm-hmm. Again,
and not to say those things are wrong either.
Again, enjoy it. Enjoy the experience. Savor it, but don't let it corrupt your mind, your tranquility, and your virtue. Ultimately, just check yourself before you wreck yourself. Right?
Always comes back to Ice Cube.
Always.
Always. It's somehow, it's incredible. And yet, what's interesting is these messages, again, like the Stoics, they were so many years ago. I mean, even before Instagram, before Facebook.
What? There wasn't time for that?
There was. This was a long time ago, and yet humans are still humans, and our nature is still true. I mean, some of the details may have changed, some of the clothing may have changed, some of the branding may have changed, but it's still the same stuff. And this still rings true, which is why we study it, why we talk about it, and why it's our basis, our guiding point, our true north for us at Painted Porch is whenever we're not sure what to do, how do we do this? We look back to these Stoic philosophies because it's still completely accurate and completely helpful.
Well said. Well said. So at the end of each lesson, they do ask us, number one, how did it go? Did you find that it helped tamp down some of those passions, some of those over-indulgent desires? And did you find this helpful? Sierra?
I did. It was a good pause. It was like that good pause and like, let's just think about it another way, talk me down off the ledge. And I really did find it helpful. I would certainly come back to this and keep this top of mind.
How about you,
I
Robert?
really I liked what Sierra did with this lesson because she took it to a whole nother level that I didn't even think about. I was just thinking about it in terms of the physical things of what they actually are. But when you talk about your emotions and how you interact with other people, that's a whole nother thing I'm looking forward to now considering as I move forward, as I become a more advanced Stoic.
A Stoic in training, as we all are, but we are never masters, always students. And that's even true of what you would consider the Stoic greats. There's a reason why we have all of these amazing quotes from Seneca and Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius. It's because they had to constantly remind themselves and coach themselves, hey, check yourself before you wreck yourself. That was basically, I feel like that's Stoicism in a nutshell, really.
It really is.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself. If you learn nothing else from this lesson, learn that. But that it's always this practice, it's reminder. And I loved, yes, Sierra, I completely agree, Rob. I loved that you can look at it from the base level cravings of food and drink, exercise, functional discharge. But you can also think about those things that you overindulge in, or that can corrupt you within your own mind or in your behaviors outside of what you are physically consuming, but what you are emotionally and mentally consuming as well. So that was spot on, Sierra.
And here's also a footnote on this. Marcus Aurelius liked functional discharge. He had 10 kids.
I thought he had 13.
Maybe it was 13, whatever. I think 10 lived, maybe.
Yeah.
He lost a couple, as you did back then.
Yeah. He
Very functional
discharge.
There's to you,
and
Mark.
then trauma that came along with having all those children too. I mean, if we ever are perfect, we will have literally nothing to talk about and nothing else to live for. So let's continue having challenges come up and opportunities come up, because that allows us to grow and to become more virtuous.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both for joining us and for sharing your feedback this week 44 in our weekly Stoic lessons. We are getting close to the end here, y'all. The next one that we have is week 45, which is study each impression scientifically.
Ooh.
So we're going to be putting on our smart hats, and we'll all show up with our glasses next week so we can appear as we are studying this.
Should I bring the beakers and the little like droppy things and the fizzy things? Okay.
Yeah, I think beakers and lab coats are a must. So on that note, thank you so much for joining us. We are Painted Porch Strategies, training and advisory team dedicated to helping you and your companies become and achieve your best versions of yourselves through mindfulness, through communication, and through teamwork. Until next time, have a wonderful week and continue to check yourself before you wreck yourself, so that way you can pursue the more virtuous path, serving yourself and your fellow human beings.